That's converting fractions to decimals. What other conversions are we going to do? Well, what about if you've got a decimal and want to convert it back? Then we need to know about place value. Look at that! Words magically appeared on my board. So let's talk about place value. If you have this one, it's 1/10. It always has a th if it's after a decimal point. For example, 100th th, 1,000th th. It's just like when you counted place value on the other side, except we go in the opposite direction, and we don't have any oneths. Oneths would be weird. So we start with tenths. 1/10, 2/10, 3/10. If you have half of something, that's 5/10, because 5 is half of 10. Now, what do we want to do? Why do we need to know this if we're converting over from a fraction to a decimal and then from a decimal to a fraction? Hey, here we go. So, if you want to convert a decimal to a fraction, let's start with one. Let's start with an easy one, in fact. Let's start with 0.8. How do we do that? Well, 8 is going to be our numerator. Numerators go up north. What's our denominator? Well, let's think about this. You could call it 0.8. You could call it decimal 8. That kind of sounds silly, less educated. We could call it 8/10, just like the word up there. 8/10. That's pretty cool. So if it's 8/10, that's 8/10. So what do we do with that? When we've got 8/10, we remember how to factor. Poof! Factors. 8 is 2 times 2 times 2, and 5 times 2 is 10. So if we break these into factors and stack it, poof, like that. So we stack it. We've got all of the factors that we need to multiply back and get our 8. Don't just tell me it's 2. How many 2's is it? It takes 3. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2, that's 8. I've got my factors. What do I do about that now? Well, funny you should ask. So, if the factor is in the top and the bottom, we cross it out. I had 1, 2 upstairs and 1, 2 downstairs that matched as a pair. Throw them out of here. What's 2 divided by 2? 1. That's like saying 1 times 2 times 2 and 1 times 5. What's 1 times 5? 5. What's 2 times 2? 4. So, if we go through and eliminate the pairs of factors that we have in the top and the bottom, that's called reducing the fraction. It's that easy. Aren't you glad you learned how to factor first? Now, if you still need some help factoring, come talk to me. Meet me on Google Meets. Talk to me in person in about a week. Don't wait that long. Get on Google Meets. We can make it happen. So, what about a less good number? 0.357. No, 375. We did this one already. Remember, it was over there. So, we know what the answer is supposed to be. Let's see if we can get it. 0.375. That's 3 is in the 10th place, 7's in the 100th place, 5 is in the 1000th place. Let's make it into a fraction. We take the number, throw away the decimal. Decimal, who needs you anymore? Get out of here, decimal. Woo! We write our number down, 375. We remember that fractions are another way of showing division, and put our division bar, also known as a fraction bar. And what do we need for our denominator? That was 375 thousandths. 3/10, 7/100, 5 thousandths. 375 thousandths. Sounds like it should be over 1,000, right? If you're not sure, just count the number of places. The number of places that you have is the number of zeros you put downstairs. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I need 3 zeros downstairs. I can do that. Mr. Starling, you can't divide by 0. I asked Siri about it one time. 0 divided by 0, Siri told me the truth. I got red. So, that's the thing. You don't divide by 0. It's thousandths. Put a 1 at the front. Poof. So, there's our thousandths. We ought to reduce this. Is there a 5 that can go into the top one? Yes, because it ends in 5. Any number that ends in 5 or 0 can be divided by 5. So if I take a 5 out of that, I can take a 5 out of the other thing, because it ends in 0. What do we get? Downstairs we'll have 200. Upstairs, it's going to be a little more like, well, let's see, 35, that's 7 and 25, 5. So it's going to be 75 over 200. Let's do that. You didn't show the factoring. Okay, let's show the factoring. Poof, there's my factoring for 375. It's got a 5, it's got another 5, it's got a 5 again, and it's got a 3. How many 5s? 1, 2, 3. 3 5s and a 3. Got to get it all in there. Now, what about our 1,000? 1,000's a cool number, right? It's just like 100 with an extra 0, which is just like 10 with an extra 0. So, let's look into that. 10 factors into 2 and 5. So that's 10. Now, so we really want enough space to do our 1,000. We said we could divide it by 5, but that made 200. So 200 on one side, 5 on the other. 5's prime. Let's break our 200. 200 can be divided by 5 because it's got a 0. That gives you 40. 40 we know is 5 times 8. And 8, we already talked about 8. 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. 3 2s in a row. 2, 2, 2. It's way down there at the edge of the screen, but you can see it. So, let's see. We've got 2 times 2 times 2 times 5 times 5 times 5.
5, 5, 5.
Canceling time. So, we're going to start by looking and saying, how many 5s can I cancel? That's a pair. There's a pair. Another pair. So, if you've got 3 5s canceled out at the bottom, you don't have any more 5s. Great news. That was all the 5s up top, too. Up top, what are you left with? You're left with the number 3. We're going to have a 3. Downstairs, what have we got? 2 times 2 times 2. That's all that's left. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 3 8s. 3 8s. Factoring, it's your friend, and it helps with conversion, converting from decimals to fractions. How about fractions to decimals? Just divide.